Hi, I'm Ryan, and welcome to our first installment of Know Your Pool. We're here in the Nathan's backyard, who just had their brand new 1636 rectangle pool installed last fall. We're still in the Nathan's backyard, and we're at the equipment pad. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the pump. So they have a Hayward TriStar variable speed pump here, and we're going to take a look at some of the basic operation. Your pump may not be the exact same, but these things will apply to your pump. So the first thing we want to talk about is terminology. So the first thing in the system is the pump. That's where the water is returning from the pool, coming into the pump. So we have our first stage of filtration, which is our skimmer basket. And then we're going from the skimmer through the line and into the pump. So we call this the pump pot or the pump basket, not the skimmer. So sometimes that can be a little bit of a confusing thing, but this is our pump, and this is the second basket before we get to the filter. So there's a few things that we want to look at with our pump. So in this particular case, we always want to make sure that the water is filled up to the top of the glass. We almost want to make it look empty inside. Ideally, there's no air bubbles. When you have a variable speed pump such as this one, when they're not operating at full speed, sometimes you will see some air at the top or the water will be splashing up to the top. That's normal when the pump is not running at full speed. So we want to talk about when there is air in here and how we want to get rid of it. So there's a couple of common causes. When we're looking at the front of the pump, so anywhere from the pot forward is under vacuum. So when we have a leak, when we're under vacuum, we're going to pull air. That air is going to shoot into the pump pot here, and that's why they all have a clear window so that you can see what it looks like. You're going to see air inside here. So the few common ways that air gets in there that's important to check is we always, when we empty out a basket, we're going to open the lid. We're going to flip it upside down, and there's an O-ring inside of each lid. So whether it's on the surface of the pump body itself or inside the lid, this is something that we always want to check. It's easy to be overlooked, but something just as tiny as one of these little flower petals or just a tiny piece of leaf gets stuck in here, that's enough that it will not allow it to make a great seal. So we always want to take a look at our O-ring and make sure that it's clean. We want to run our finger along an O-ring, and if there's any bits of black or piece that comes off, that generally indicates your O-ring is starting to get to the end of its life. There's probably some little micro fractures in there that'll let air in. So we want to take out our basket of our pump. We want to take a look, make sure we clean it all out. And then we're going to put it back in. Check the surface here. We've checked the underside of our lid. We're going to put it on. Lock it down tight. So we want to make sure that the lid is snugged on and there's nothing on it. That's the most common cause for air to get into your system. The next thing we want to look at is if there's any unions or connections. On the front of this pump, they're all glued fittings. So generally glued fittings, once they're in place, are good. But we do want to check for things like a union at the front of the pump. We want to make sure the drain plugs are nice and snug. You would think if the drain plugs aren't tight that we would lose water out of them. However, under a vacuum pressure at the front of the pump, that is another common spot where air could be let into the system. So that's the basic understanding of the pump. In this case, we do have a variable speed pump. It's controlled by an automation system, but otherwise your variable speeds will be controlled on the pump itself.